everyone. Welcome again to another of our Meet the Vendor webinar series, where we get to meet all sorts of exciting founders and creators in the Atlassian ecosystem. And today we've got Ian from Metricus. He's going to talk to us all about data mining, process mining. Thanks for joining us, Ian.
My pleasure.
So you're going to tell us a little bit about process mining today and the tools that you've developed. Very excited. Go for it.
Okay, good. So what I'll do is I'll just share my screen to start with. And okay, so what we're going to talk today about is the Metricus Process Optimizer for Jira. We've recently put this into the Atlassian marketplace and actively working with partners such as design industries to take the value to the market. So I'll just do a couple of slides just to familiarize you with what it actually is and what we're trying to do here, and then we'll go straight into a demo. Okay. So the Process Optimizer leverages process mining technology. So what it's all about is taking this technology related to process mining to enable the optimization of your processes. Now, if we look at process mining, what it's all about is taking the nuts and bolts of what's happening in a process, and that's stored in the activity history, or we call it the event logs. So issues in Jira will have all sorts of events that occur during their life cycle, the life cycle being the creation to the closure. Now, there's a wealth of information in that, and process mining, I like to say it's almost like an X-ray into it. So it's enabling the visualization of the life cycles of your processes. Now that visualization then enables things like discovery. So you can really look at, right, what's happening, rather than the old-fashioned analytics that tell you what's happened after the fact or tabular format. This is enabling you to actually look at what's going on in the life cycle of the process. So we have a discovery phase, which I'll show in the demo. And during the discovery phase, we can look at things like performance issues. Where are your bottlenecks? Which steps are taking too long? Who's responsible for it? What types of issues are causing problems? Then we can look at automation. We can start trying to identify steps which should be automated, or what types of issues for particular steps should be automated. So it helps you on that whole digital automation journey. Then we can look at compliance, look at steps that should be happening and shouldn't be happening. We can flag them, and then we can track them across time. Underlying all of this is the concept that it's discovery. During discovery, you make findings. Those findings become rules, and then we create initiatives to track that across time and improve. So enabling this whole continuous improvement cycle. We can also do a cost simulation, and I'll show you that, by tracking the costs at the step level and relating them to performance improvements. And as I said, it's all about improvements, continual improvement initiatives, analyzing the data, then being able to identify what needs to change and then tracking them. Okay, so that's like a 2 or 3 5-minute process mining overview, but it is a technology that enables process optimization. So, okay, so I'll just stop this share and go into the actual demo.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's next level, and I guess this is relying on data that's in Jira already. So it's going to allow you to visualize and work with.
Yeah, and interestingly, it is Jira. It's just not Jira Service Management. So it's any process that is in Jira. It could be release management, agile, project management, anywhere where you have a process and an issue with a life cycle. If the data's there, you can then analyze that. Now, to get up and running, we access the Process Miner for Jira app, and then it's pretty straightforward to get started. So often the best way is this model wizard. That's going to say, well, what issue field do you want to analyze the process lifecycle for? A good candidate status. So when you define a workflow, you'll often define, well, what statuses? What should the status flow be? Okay, but you can also analyze based on assignees, assignment groups, or category changes, or any event that occurs during the life cycle of the process you can analyze. We'll just choose status. And then it will say, okay, what projects am I interested in? You can choose one or more projects. Then you can say, well, what issue types? It'll come up with all the issue types that you have, and issue types, every single one of them has a story to tell in terms of its life cycle. But we might just go, just for the sake of demo here, service requests. Then we'll say, well, when we've got this data in and we're analyzing it, how do we want to drill down on it? And you'll often choose some categorization fields or ownership fields like assignment group or category or say a service offering, right? And you'll see how these work in a moment. And then we'll say, okay, well, what dates do we want? Anything. Then it'll just say validate, because we want to make sure that we've actually got some data. So what it's now saying is I've picked around 4,063 issues here now, and we are going to analyze their life cycle by status. Okay, now if we click Process Optimizer, it's going to initialize and then read all of the event logs. Now this might take a minute or so. So what I've done is just already have the data loaded. So now we begin our journey of process optimization. Now, there's a fair bit to look at here. So I'll just go step by step. There's various ways of looking at the data. The default is this, what we call a process visualizer. And we'll go through some of the other analytics, such as variant lifecycle, issue lifecycle, histogram, etc. We'll look at them. But the most important concept is, just going to move this over a little bit. Oh, and over the right, we have various panes here that allow us to control what we're looking at. And the most important one is this whole concept of a variant. So a variant is a distinct combination of steps that occur in the life cycle of a task, of an issue. And we can see that there's around, in the gauges up here, we're looking at the top 8, but there's 319 different variants. So there's 319 different ways that the issues that we selected are actually resolved. So that's a lot of different noise in the system. And we want to start looking at, where are the problems, going back to process mining, the performance issues, the automation opportunities, compliance, etc. So we've got these variants, and we've got this variant selector. And the most common variant, those of you familiar with incidental service request will know this one. It goes straight to resolve, then to close. The second most common one is that it goes to unassigned, assigned, resolve, then closed. The third most common, assigned, resolve, closed. Then we go to fourth most. This one's interesting, and we'll get back to this. Goes straight to unassigned, then to resolve. Now, that shouldn't ever happen. So straight off the bat, we've identified a compliance problem. Now, but getting back to the functionality on the right here before we look at the individual steps. So we've got, the variant slicer where we can just choose different variants to look at. We might be interested in ones that have got a very high duration. So we can sort and filter based upon the different metrics and attributes associated with different variants. Let's go back to the default ones. You've probably already seen this is a very function-rich interactive environment. There is a lot to this, and we're just giving out that high-level overview. And when I say a lot to it, it doesn't mean that it's not easy to use. It's just there's an extraordinary amount of information here. Then we got slices, where we can just look at slice by particular steps. So we only want to see variants that contain a particular step. Okay, so if you're a process analyst, you want to look at specific steps to see how they're functioning. We can just reset that. At slices, we can also do things like looking at paths, like looking like when a particular activity occurred, did something eventually happen after it? Okay, so this is the discovery phase. We're looking at, all right, how are issues being resolved, closed, etc. All the different steps. Then we can also filter the data. So we can say, well, I only want to look at issues that were assigned to a particular assignment group, or are of a particular service type, or a particular category, etc. There's all sorts of ways, filter by time, and all sorts of ways to slice and filter the data that you're looking at. But let's just go with everything now, all of the data. And we'll choose the top 8 most variants here. Now, if I'm a process analyst here, I'm looking at this, and I got some questions. And it's helping us by highlighting some stuff. So initially, steps are highlighted by their duration. So the ones in red are the highest duration, the ones in green are the lowest duration. So it's trying to tell us, right, which ones are taking longer than others. We can always highlight by volume, as in which ones are occurring the most. Or we can highlight by the standard deviation. Standard deviation is an important one when you're looking at analyzing process lifecycle, because if a step has a high standard deviation, it means it's not stable. It means that people are having problems with it. Maybe some knowledge articles will help, or training. And conversely, if a step has a very low standard deviation, why isn't it being automated? Because it's taking the same amount of time every time. So just an observation around standard deviation. Let's just go back to duration. And now I'm seeing a few things here. Assigned to resolved, it's taking average of 3 days, standard deviation of 25 days. Obviously, we've got some outliers there. You can always look at outliers by a histogram. So right mouse clicking a step brings up all of the different ways of analyzing it, such as histograms to determine how stable steps are. I'll just quickly go over these because there's demo sites and tutorials and a lot more detailed information. So assigned resolve, if I want to look at that a bit more, I can go, okay, let's look at some detail. All the actual issues. And then we've got just some analytics on, okay, let's look at this step and by assignment group. Okay, ITS help desk, what's the average duration of that assignment group for this step? We can then look at it by other attributes such as service. So now we're starting to say, well, we know this step is performing like this. Now try to tell us why. What are the issues? What are their attributes? What groups are involved? What types of issues? So we've got the detail, and then we've got other ways of drilling down. we got some decomposition trees where we can say, okay, there's 2,073 issues there, and we want to look at drilling down, say, by service. All right, which service has the highest average duration for that step that we're analyzing. We go back. We can also do things like this, like automated insights. So we can choose combinations of attributes, and it will say, okay, when we're looking at, say, let's do category and assignment group. So when we do category service group, it's saying, well, this combination constitutes the largest percentage of the issues in that step. And these ones constitute the lowest over on the right. Okay. So we can look at a particular step, and there's multiple ways of getting into all of the detail influences. So this assignment group, the duration, 72% above average. So that assignment group for that step is the one that is performing the worst. And we can actually go into detail here and look at the individual events, and then even say, well, who are the resources? So we've got a step that we're concerned about. We can drill down and say, well, what types of issues are causing the problems? And then look at, okay, who is associated with them, what issues they are. This is the discovery phase. Now,
it's the amount of information that's available. It's just, if we're even just looking at one transition on one workflow, the amount of data that's available, I think, yeah, go on.
No, go ahead.
I guess the thing that's jumping out to me now is for an organisation to pick this up and use it, what sort of level of training is required? Because I guess I'm thinking about, the ease of getting into this. I mean, we've got the data, we install the software, create some process models, but ultimately we're going to have to train our team to some extent. What are your thoughts on the ability of a BA or, well, I guess a process analyst is going to pick this up in 2 seconds flat?
Exactly. So a process analyst, the training is minimal because the theme is consistent. You have a visual and you can drill down, analyze by different mediums. We haven't got into the rules and all of that yet. But so for somebody like a process analyst, or even like a help desk manager, or somebody who's actively involved in the actual process, the data, it's anybody who understands that there is a process. The training is minimal because they understand what they're looking for. It's saying, all right, well, wow, here's a whole new way of looking at it. It's giving me a whole lot of different bunch of information. So the key point is to get the right user base. This is not a traditional BI tool where you're just getting like an easy BI that's just giving you some graphs and grids, etc., that you can put into PowerPoints and publish to people. This is an exploratory, interactive environment. So it's a different sort of tool than a BI tool.
Yeah, fascinating.
But the training, to get back to the original question, training is minimal. It's exploring. It's taking the time to understand what's going on. And that's where you get the real value out of it in terms of the improving delivery, reducing costs, improving compliance, increasing automation. So it's a journey. It's not a one-off. It's the beginning of a journey. Learning how to commence that journey is not that difficult. Now, let's go back to this variant for unassigned result. So I mentioned earlier, there's a discovery process, and we might make some findings. I made a finding, right? We got a variant, which is 6% of, over here we can see, I've just get that one, 6% of issues, they're not being resolved correctly. We can then say, well, we've made a finding. I got to tell the system about a finding. And this is where the rules come in. So we can create rules, process rules. We can create a compliance rule here that says, I'm going to make this step non-compliant. Okay. I won't click OK because I've already done it in the background as a finding. And I can go as far as saying it's non-compliant if the duration is greater than X hours, days, and that. So we've got compliance rules. And then performance rules, where we can say, we've identified, say, for assigned to resolve that for a particular group, they're just not performing well. And so we can set up a performance rule that says that we want to reduce how long these take by X hours, okay, for particular types of issues. And we also have automation rules. Now, what I'm going to do is jump forward, because what we have, here are the process rules. So you can define the rules based upon findings, but we also have predefined sets of rules that will automatically detect what is going wrong in your processes. So yes, there is this manual process of discovery, but there's also the automated process of discovery. And for example, a classic compliance rule, it will be unexpected transition, incidents go straight to resolve. It shouldn't happen. They should be assigned first. Another compliance rule, which is the one that we just had a look at, unassigned to resolve is a non-compliant step. And again, we have a rule, it's identified the issues. We can look at them even further to say, all right, who is responsible? What types of issues are non-compliant? So the same theme, you're identifying problems, discovering them. Now we've got them as rules, and you can drill down on the rules. Here's a performance one. This is a standard rule. Incidents that take more than 7 days to move from resolve to close. There's an automated process that should automatically close an issue after 5 days. So if they take, say, more than 7, something's wrong. Now we've got a performance rule to say, well, this is like an objective. We want to reduce assigned to resolve time by 50% for incidents where the assignment group is ITS help desk. And that constitutes 2,300 issues. Now what you see here is like the next step. So there's discovery, there's the process rules, which enable, when we implement rules, we get metrics. So up the top, by just putting in those 2 compliance rules, it's got, okay, well, only 54% of issues are compliant. 91% of variance, but only 54% of issues. And we can track those metrics across time with different analytics. So you can do a rule, and then it initiates an initiative. Then you track that initiative across time for improvement, improving performance or improving compliance. So I like to say kind of like the third big thing, if you will. We've got the discovery, we've got the process rule, we've also got cost. So we've said, well, we want to reduce this step we've identified as a problem one in the life cycle for a particular assignment group. Okay, what if we know the cost of that step? So we can put in costs. So we can identify a step and say, okay, there's a fixed cost or cost per hour based on business hours and non-business hours, or we can bring in data from resources if we know the cost resources. Better still, work log if we know how long people have been working. We know how long they're working on what step, and so what the cost may be. Different ways of doing cost rule. Once we've got a cost rule, we can equate it to a performance or a compliance. Compliance, we're saying, well, that step's not going to happen. If there's a step cost related to that step and it doesn't happen, then that's a cost reduction. But in performance, we said, here's 150%, obviously 50% saving, 30%, and then we get metrics across the board to say, all right, what's our average saving per issue? What's the total cost saving if we implement these rules, these performance rules? So performance rule, warranty rule may or may not be related to have a cost. Cost is simulation, et cetera, sort of like the icing on the cake, which is often, you need to have done your discovery. You need to have made the findings, and then you can start looking at putting in some costs. And just finally, I mentioned analytics. We can track different metrics across time by different issue attributes. So clearly here we've said we want to reduce costs for the assignment group ITS help desk. So yeah, it says this is where most of your costs are going to be reduced. But we also did one based on a cap on a type of issue, which different types of assignment group would have resolved. I think that was category inquiry. Okay, so there's a whole lot of analytics just to support the decision making and looking at things across time. Okay, so that is a overview of the process optimizer for JIRA. It's gives an entirely new insight into how you're using JIRA, and hopefully enables you to go on different continuous improvement journeys through compliance and digital automation and performance improvements. So there you go, Michael.
That's amazing, Ian. And it's just fascinating insight into data that's sitting there. And yeah, as I was saying before about just being able to get into the tools. What about in terms of organization type or size? Is there particular organizations or size?
Good question. Good question. Process mining in general is an enterprise level sort of application. If you're a JIRA user with 100 issues a month, you're going to be able to look at it manually, right, and figure out what's going on for the most part. So the real value is where, in a sense, the value is almost proportional to the volume. Because the more volume you have, the more issues that, sorry, the more volume you have, the more potential problems that there are, plus the more value add in fixing those problems. So it's the larger customers that will really see the value, not only from this process optimizer, but from process mining in general.
You think there's a sort of, let's say, top 3 or 2 or 3 use cases where an organization like Design Industries could provide a service where we install the software, we have it there running, and then an analyst from Design Industries would be able to look at some very common areas, shall we say, where improvement can be found. I think that, and then
so the way that Metricus as a business is putting this forward to partners, JIRA partners globally, is twofold. One is, yes, it can be part of a suite of applications to assist your customers in their whole journey with JIRA. The second one is for the partner to perform consulting projects that say, let's do almost a snapshot. Let's have a good look at this to see what's going on. And in that context, in the first instance, we have all of the rules. So it doesn't take long to construct a process model and then apply a prepackaged set of rules to say, right, here's a lot of problems. So we see a lot of value add in that, to identify just the basic problems. And then to work with the customers to say, well, how can we improve them, and then use the tool to say, well, what types of issues are causing these problems? And then to work with customers on specific objectives that might relate to, say, they're on a digital automation journey. This will help them to say, well, we didn't probably look at that too much, but there's tutorials and etc. on our website about how to do that. But to say, well, in the service management space, or in the Jira space, what can we automate? What can we automate? Or compliance initiatives around regulations. So in terms of the original question, you as your customers as a partner, how can you use it? I would see that it's more around all of the package rules and to work on some of those initiatives I mentioned.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess, yeah, to all the people out there considering this software, I mean, just think about it this way: the data's there. We install the software, and yeah, you can work with an expert who'll be able to help you put some basic configurations and rules into place, and yeah, give a high-level analysis. And I'd say that's got to be worth it, just from the point of there is going to be low-hanging fruit, and it's just finding out what those top items are, and then yeah, you're starting that process of continual improvement. We're always talking about continual improvement with our clients across the platform, and here's a way, yeah, to optimize your processes. So
probably one thing to mention too is Jira's got a fairly strong competitor in the service management space in ServiceNow, and ServiceNow is actively promoting process mining as their key differentiator in their solution base, and also from a licensing perspective. So the enterprise version of ServiceNow is the baseline version plus process mining. So they're looking at this technology, this sort of solution, to be the real ramp up for their customers in terms of, their overall maturity and delivery. And so, we're bringing this to Jira.
Yeah, fantastic. I was going to say, perhaps you can stop sharing your screen because it doesn't show.
I shall do.
Faces while we're doing that. Yeah, well, as much as I'd like to badmouth ServiceNow, simply just nowhere near what Atlassian is. And yeah, I think, I guess what you're bringing to the table there is, I guess if they're calling it a key differentiator, it's not anymore, is it?
No, it's not at all.
Back to the drawing board for the marketing guys. I don't know, girls.
Oh, I think it's all in alignment with what I was at Teams last week, and the marketplace, the application concept that Atlassian's taken I think that's going to serve all our customers a lot better than trying to be the be all and end all for a customer.
No, it's very, very difficult to be good at everything all the time. All right. Well, thanks very much, Ian. That was very informative and
my pleasure.
Very interesting. So thanks for your time.
Yeah.
And we'll be working together over the next period, helping our clients analyze their processes. So thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. Cheers.